The Longevity Lounge is proudly brought to you by AIA Australia, dedicated to helping Australians live healthier, longer, better lives. Welcome back to the Longevity Lounge, where we dive deep into the stories, science and strategies that help us all live younger, longer. In today's episode, Leachy and the Professor are joined by longtime mate, Olympic gold medalist Duncan Armstrong. Duncan opens up like never before, sharing his journey through serious heart issues and how he fought his way back to full health. What struck them most during the podcast was Duncan's vulnerability. He let his guard down. He spoke honestly about the challenges he faced and delivered powerful messages on longevity, mindset, and the importance of living fully in the present. It's an inspiring chat from someone who's conquered the world stage and then had to rebuild from the inside out.
So, Duncan, welcome to the lounge.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. It's nice to be lounging with you both.
We go back a long way, Dunk, with swimming and surf lifesaving and the like. Mate, can you let our listeners know, I'm pretty confident it was 1988 where you hit the scene. Can you give us a bit of background into that?
It's good that your memory still works all the way back to the 80s, mate, after what you'd been up to. Yeah, 1988, I was 20 years of age. It was the first Olympic Games. We had boycotts in 1980 in Moscow and 1984 in Los Angeles. So the 1988 Olympics was the first time the world got together under the five rings in neutral ground. The East was still East, the West was still West. So there was a lot of tension between the Eastern Bloc countries of Russia and East Germany and all the Baltic states up against the West, which we were part of. We were friends with America, or we still are. And so it was an exciting time to be 20 years of age, getting into my first Olympic Games. I've been training with Laurie Lawrence in his powerhouse squad that had produced Tracy Wickham and John Seaborn and Justin Lemberg and Steve Holland and these sort of great names of Australian swimming history. And he had just this fantastic culture of producing young athletes who went across to foreign lands and World Championships, Commonwealth Games, and Olympic Games. And they really had that self-belief, Leachy and Carl, that we could compete, that we could be just as good as the rest of the world. And he was able to instill that bravery and courage into us at a young age. And it certainly worked for me. I've had 40 years of therapy because of my 9 years with Laurie Lawrence. But
he's a big character.
He's a larger-than-life character for such a small bloke. So, yeah, got over there. I was in day one of competition. I was up against 3 world record holders in the men's 200 metres freestyle. I was able to get lane 6 in the final, which was the 4th fastest qualified by dropping my time by 2 seconds. And then in the final, I got another drop of a second and a half to break the world record and come in 0.19 of a second in front of the best swimmers in the world. So it was the fastest race in history in the men's 200 metres freestyle. And I was able to break that world record held by Michael Gross, who was over there in lane number 3. He got swum into 5th place. And I was able to grab my moment in history on that day on the 19th of September in 1988. Went into a relay. After that, we got a 4th. And then I went in the 400 metres freestyle and I got beaten by a 10th of a second to get a silver. So I came away with a 4th, a gold and a silver out of my first Olympic Games in 1988. And that's where my name really sort of hit the highlights reel and became a household name at the age of 20.
Can I tell you, I took Michael Gross, who was that tall, lanky lad who was he was a superstar, wasn't he, in the 80s with all the events he could do. I took him body surfing at Freshwater Beach. You just reminded me of him when you mentioned that. He swam out the back. It was about 4 foot that day, and he swam out the back very, very easily.
Yeah. His nickname was the Albatross. He had 15 world records, and he won 7 Olympic gold medals in something like 3 Olympic Games appearances, and just a phenomenal athlete and really good bloke. Went in to do a fair bit of political science and all that kind of thing after that, and he's never recovered from body bashing with you, mate.
That's right. I'd just like to say I schooled him that day on the way in. He got me on the way up.
You had to, didn't you?
On the way in.
He was on the way out, no good on the way in.
The crowd was up as one, Duncan. I took him to the beach. Yeah.
So funny.
So much fiction. So, Duncan, at 20 years old, you mentioned that was a big moment for you. Take us from that point in time in 1988 to now, some highlights in terms of this is about longevity, but health and fitness, but just generally in terms of your life, you did pop onto our television screens. Most of us had never really heard of you. I don't think you're a favourite to win that, just by your own account there, a couple of seconds off the pace, really. And it wasn't just a career highlight for you, it was a national celebration. We all lorry jumping in the pool. It's etched into, I was obviously very young at that point in time, so I can hardly remember it. But from what I understand from my parents, it was a really big moment. And then I'm sure a lot of people are very interested in, we saw you on TV, but take us through the story over the last however many years that might be.
Yeah, it's been about 37 years. So I got to the 1992 games and had a shoulder injury, just couldn't get Olympic fit enough. So I was just in a relay for that, and we got DQ'd because Kieran Perkins, I won't say his name, but Kieran Perkins jumped early. And unfortunately, 4x200 freestyle relay was DQ'd. So it's a fantastic experience in Barcelona, Milt. And so I retired about a year after that. Had 2 kids and a wife at that stage, went through a marriage breakup, and then got into television. So I had about 14, 15 years in TV. Coming into the Sydney Olympic Games. So basically built a media career with radio, print and television, and then had the privilege of sitting next to Ray Warren and Nicole for about 12 of those years for Channel 9's coverage of this swim team that had Ian Thorpe, Grant Hackett, Michael Clem, Jeff Hugel, Susie O'Neill, Patria Thomas, Gian Rooney. We put together a star-studded team coming into our own Olympics in Sydney, and I was the guy on the pool side sitting there watching all these world records being broken. So I got very, very lucky with the golden age of swimming returning, and then Channel 9 putting together a star-studded commentary team, which I was part of for about 12, 15 years. So did a lot of media, got out of the media, but always done a lot of public speaking.
Just on the media, did you have any practice? Did you have coaching, or were you thrown in and you just tried to do your best and you worked out that you just could get better with more time at it?
Yeah, so it was all experience because Leach, you're working in television. No one gives you a leg.
No, I didn't think so.
Chance.
You're either
it's like sport. Like everybody's a competitor in television, and although you form teams and everything like that, everyone is just waiting for you to make a mistake. So, yeah, it was a bit of a tough school, but again, it was the content of what we were commentating on that really built our careers. You couldn't go wrong calling Thorpe in a swimming race. You just couldn't go wrong. Yeah. You just had to stay out of the way of the moments, and you're sitting next to Ray Warren, and Rabs is going to build it to something quite extraordinary. I also worked with Bruce McAvaney and these other really, really experienced campaigners. So I got very, very lucky, Leachy, but I did a bit of commentary.
Can I say on that, I had Mike Gibson as my first ever mentor, the great Mike Gibson. And I said to him, because he was hosting the Ironman series when I retired, and I said, Gibbo, anything I need to know. And you may have got the same sort of info from Bruce McAvaney, for instance. And he said to me, listen, you are the expert commentator. Don't tell the audience what they can see. Tell them something that they don't know. I'll never forget that when he told me that. Yeah.
And that's it, isn't it? Like you call a colour commentator an expert commentator, you have to interpret something that people can't see. And Ray was really good at that because Ray would do the 1 to 8 and know all about basically this and that. So he had his notes. Nicole and I had our notes, and we just poke and prod him where to look and where to call next, whether it be splits, world record pace, someone's out of the pool or whatever it is, bad turn, bad this. We would take care of all of that. Now in swimming, unlike an Ironman or a Coolangatta Gold, for instance, we only had 7 or 8 meters to call something different. Because they're racing down the pool. They take 21 seconds to do a 50. So I'm not getting in the 50s. I'm getting 7 seconds in the 100. I'm getting about 14, 15 seconds in the 200s. In the 400, you get a bit more of a chance. The 1500 it's not bad. So we were very, very technical in terms of when we came in, when we went out. But like you said, mate, these guys were experienced campaigners. We had to tell them something different. And that's what I think is missing a little bit out of the commentary today, because the way we consume media has completely changed from back in the day. So the audience is looking for something different, and the commentators have to get in line for that. So sometimes you feel like the commentators, especially the colour guys, are saying nothing, but that's the way they carve things up and consume it these days. So you got to take a bit with a grain of salt. Around the media stuff, getting back to all about me, around the media stuff, I've always done a lot of corporate representation. So I've been a representative for many, many large corporations like Telstra for 22 years and Westpac for 14 years, and these sort of like strong corporate relationships that I've always had. I've now moved into training athletes, getting them ready to be corporate ambassadors. So I've got a whole business that is
good.
shaped.
That makes sense, right? Oh, well, yeah, that's a really good niche.
Well, yeah, think about the next 7 years, mate. The next 7 years, basically, companies are going to be clamoring to work with athletes all the way through to our own games. And I want to make sure that as many companies are using trained ambassadors, because you've been there, I've been there. You walk into a corporation, they don't know what to do with you. They're really happy to have you. They're really excited about the relationship and the money they're paying you and the representation between your brand and their brand. But if they haven't got a system in place to actually take you in, give you some idea of what the corporation culture is, get that ambassador into the corporate events, you look like an old bottle of beer on the wall, and it doesn't work.
And I suppose when they're paying you an X amount of money to a sports person and they're not utilising you, the next year comes and they won't renew the contract, and you've done nothing wrong other than just be guided by them, and they didn't know how to use you.
Yeah. So our training is based on that dynamic, mate. Ask the right questions, get in there and make sure you make yourself useful. Give them your value proposition pretty much every time you're in there by understanding the game, be educated and trained in the skill set, and mate, you'll get contracts for decades.
And are you training the not just the athlete but the end user? So do you come in as a contractor to the company to say this is the best way to use Ian Thorpe for this program over the next year?
That's right. We consult inside the corporate to make sure they're utilising their new asset as much as possible. So we help them with their event planning to make sure it's athlete-led, help them with their event timing to understand when the athlete is most effective, understanding their people and culture systems to make sure that they can pull the athlete into different activities that they're trying to do as an inspirational piece to the rest of their staff.
That's interesting because Carl jumping because he is the master. He's a pretend professor. Like Jack.
Here we go.
Because he's literally an expert in culture, in business, in corporate. So Carl also have a lot to say about this sort of stuff, for sure.
Yeah, no, that would be good, but we'll take it offline, Carl.
Yeah, no, well, it's an interesting. So we do a lot of we run the Culture Institute outside of this podcast, which is how I actually make a living, as opposed to just dedicate more time to Leachy's career. And we do all sorts of analytics and education and advisory work. And what you're saying there, particularly because there's such a keen performance in Australia, almost like our national culture as well around high performance, which comes largely from our sporting background, our sporting attraction and affiliation. But organizations are forever talking about high performance and what does that look like and how we get performance edge. And so the role of an ambassador like yourself, and Leachy, I don't know whether you've ever swum or not, but if you swam, you might have been all right at it. You could have probably played a role just like Duncan if you really played your cards well and just didn't do Beach Olympics and you're under.
See what he just did, then Duncan, didn't he? See that? Yeah. That's what I deal with.
So, no, I think it's an interesting approach you've got there because, like you say, most athletes are really valuable to large corporations in terms of what they can impart, their mental models, their mindset, their training, their conditioning, the way they approach things. But then bringing that to a accessible, relevant way of life for people in a corporation that they don't get up at 5 o'clock and go to the pool for 2 hours. And they never have. They don't really understand why necessarily you would or why you'd be on a program. I mean, Leachy for many years was as you would have been too, beholden to a program that you probably signed every week and you had goals every week that you were working towards, which has a direct correlation to high performance in organizations. But there's a conceptual leap between where they are at the moment and what you know to be a lived experience that works.
Yeah, I think so, Carl. I think I'm very aligned with what you've just said there, mate. I think there's the religion of sport in this country. It can move into corporate life. It just has to be nuanced. To make sure that the athlete is bringing what they value and the corporate understands the value they're bringing. Like what I also look at in terms of the Ambassador Academy that I do is I want to sustain the value that the athlete has in the marketplace. In the sport, their marketplace value is amazing. It's a real high point. They've driven their personality, ability, and gotten out there. And so they're leaving one market as they transition out of sport, and they're trying to, head into another market, which they don't have a great deal of value in. So our skills that we teach them, hopefully will keep them at a peak, but they won't be able to stay at the peak, but at least it won't be a sharp peak. Hopefully we give them the skills to be absolutely, take that peak and run it out over time before, starting to build that peak again in terms of their ability, identity in the corporate market. So there's a large dip, but we're trying to make that dip less deep for athletes. And we've all seen, whether they're pro athletes or Olympic athletes, they get this high and then plunge out of it as they try to get into another market. Our skills come along and sort of soften that top of the wedge. And so that's what we're trying to do. And so that's the personal work that I do with athletes. And I truly love it. The privilege to work with these incredibly gifted, dedicated, hardworking people and try to give them the skill set, because they're all coachable. That's what makes it easy. It's not like you're going to a bunch of underperformers who don't.
Well, they're used to being coached, right? It's like in their DNA. That's how they performed as kids, right? To get better at what they do.
Yeah. So coming in with a whole different, hey, here's a syllabus. Let's go through the modules. You all understand this a little bit. I know you're driven, so let's unlock the keys to make sure that you're going to be successful in this next market.
So there was nothing like this when I got out in '96 from professional sport. Did that for 12 years, and you're literally thinking about what you're saying. It was sink or swim.
Oh yeah.
But my mum saying, "Listen, here's a voice coach. Let's take you over here to at least try to get you better." And we just did it because we didn't know what else to do. Literally, I remember the first talk I ever did, I took on board in Hawaii in 1985 for $5,000 to go and talk in front of BHP, all the directors over there. And I'd never been in a debating team, let alone talked in front of anyone. And I would have to say to this day, it's the most terrifying thing that I'd ever done. And because you just don't have any warm-up or training to get you to a point where you're going to go and do that. Absolutely. It's so needed. It's such a good thing that you're doing.
Hey, so Leachy, all the way from 1985 to now, what do you reckon as a speaker or a presenter? And mate, you've done ambassadorships with about 2,000 companies since
Sure.
You know what I mean? You can speak, about so many experiences. So what do you reckon the level that you're at now as, one of the OGs? What do you reckon your best skill at after all this experience?
Storytelling.
Now,
storytelling. So and that's just been something that I think was in me a little bit. My dad was a salesperson, and I've got a lot of his personality in me. And it's like three people could be in the same situation, and all three of them could tell the same story to mates. Without the others there, and one of them will tell the story that'll sound so much better. Now, obviously, there might be a level of sprinkling of enthusiasm and a bit of extra thrown in, but
lies.
Yeah. Why is it lies? I just
it's interpretation. It's interpretation.
It is. It was a fantastic day, I'm telling you. And so anyway, I think for me personally, just that excitement and being able to tell a story. And I think it gravitates to people when you can bring them into a situation. Look, I calling out a gold in '84, that first professional Ironman race was 41 years ago. But somehow I can still take parts of that and wrap a story up where people in the audience that don't even know anything about the race can feel like they're being sort of part of it on that given day. And I think
I dare say, Leachy, that you would probably be sharing stories today, not back from 1984, if you didn't have to. Like, you as a storyteller now would be pulling stuff out of your everyday, like even maybe this week at Coolum or Better Guide doing this, and you got a lesson out of that. And it just basically goes on top of what you're already saying. So say you get a topic, you talk about teamwork, it's one of the big anthems that they ask you to come and do as an athlete. And you go, well, I'll tell you where I saw teamwork the other day. I was on the beach at Coolum with a corporate team. Blah, 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 blah. So you're dragging in your storytelling ability with your local experiences now that ropes to a story of where you learned it. And it all balls up into sort of the topic, because all you're doing is interpreting and translating what the corporate wants.
Yeah.
So the corporate
and I led with that when I got on stage that later that day, about 80 people on the beach that didn't know each other. And then by the time we'd done the workout, everyone was laughing and slapping each other on the back, because exercise brought friendship and just brought social connection and people having a good time, you know. So I actually did that as part of the opening with the talk. So yeah, you're right.
And this is the storytelling. When people sort of say, "Oh, I got to tell stories about myself. I've got to tell stories about what I think." No, you tell stories about once you get your skills up to a level, all you're doing is a translation story of what this actually means to you today and how it meant to you last week or the last month or 40 years ago on the beach at Coolangatta. So this is what I'm trying to teach these, athletes who've got so many experiences that really, once you've translated into the corporate life, it absolutely kills. And once you build your excitement, like you imagine going back to 1985 in Hawaii with a BHP right now, mate.
Yeah.
How much fun would you have?
Yeah. And I wouldn't be terrified. I literally walked off the stage thinking, thank God that's over. And if I had to give myself a score out of 10, I'd be a solid 4. And I'm glad I'm still alive.
I reckon the audience probably would have said 2.5.
Yeah, really. But you know what? The thing is in life, as we all know, if you don't lean into that pain sometimes and lead into that uncomfortableness, then you just don't grow and you don't get into situations where you otherwise wouldn't be in. And, for me, it was always the case of, and I think Laurie Lawrence would have taught you that winning favours the brave and favours people that are willing to go and do something that others aren't willing to do and put themselves on the line. And, I could have easily knocked back that gig in Hawaii, and that was the starting point to go, well, I'm not that good at this. Let's get better at it and let's work out ways of doing that.
Yeah, look, I'll share a story with you. Had a similar path too. And when I was around about 17, I was asked to go and do a Sports Star of the Year award because I just made the Com Games team in 1986. So I went along and I thought I went okay. And the CEO got up and he says, Duncan, do you do anything else but swim? And I go, oh, no, I'm just swimming. He goes, do you think you're really good? And I go, I'm not too bad. He goes, but you're terrible at speaking.
Oh.
And so I could remember that.
Did he giggle when he said it, or was he like just straight faced?
Yeah. He was basically going on to be a professor of something, like.
Right.
And like the quote that really is going around the longevity stuff at the moment that I think you've just landed with that is comfort is the aggressive pursuit of aging.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you're just not pushing yourself for that vital growth. Like through uncomfortability comes experience, comes growth. Good, bad, or ugly, you're growing. And if you don't do stuff that's uncomfortable on a regular basis and access that courage to go and do a cringy thing or an outstanding thing, you're just not going to grow as a person. And so you're going to age out. And that's what happened in our careers. Like you got out, I got out. Everybody goes through that time where it's just too much effort. I'm looking for something a bit more comfortable than staying at the sharp edge of the wedge in swimming or Ironman or whatever we're doing. And so therefore we're seeking comfort. That means we're going to age out of this very intense atmosphere.
We should go into the longevity side of things, and people would remember your stint on the television show. You had your issues with your heart.
Yes.
You were talking about, and just how that affected you and the show itself.
Yeah, like I've always had a very, very large ego in terms of taking on the world. And I told you that story with Laurie Lawrence and what he instilled in us to have the courage and bravery to take on the best. So that really fueled my ego. Went into media, that fueled it even more. Makeup and lighting makes you look fantastic. So I was drinking, drugging, I was running around, I was living in Sydney, I was living the high life in the eastern suburbs. I just wanted to party all the time and complete disregard to my body and my health and things like that. So the family history that I've got is my dad was a swimmer, swam for grandma, held a GPS grandma backstroke record for 11, 12 years. I look like my dad. I sound like my dad. I'm proud of that. My mum has never done a bit of exercise in her life. She doesn't look like me. I don't look like her. Love my mum, but she is nothing that I would follow in terms of family history. She had a quadruple bypass at 66, so she's definitely got a heart condition. And she's 90. We just celebrated her 90th birthday. So she's lived to our bones and she's gone well. But I just wasn't checking her problems because Dad didn't have any. And so I was really looking away and my ego was running hot. So I had a catastrophic heart attack on Remembrance Day 2020. and just celebrated the 5-year anniversary of it. And I got myself to hospital and died in the foyer. And so I had a blockage of 4 of my major vessels around my heart, and I didn't even know. Didn't even know I was crook. I'll tell you a quick story. I went to the gym that day. I went to Sharpies and Barty's F45 on Wolf Street in Brizzy. Did a good workout, got my line heart up to an extraordinary level. Went back to work, had a shower, put my favourite work shirt on, looked in the mirror downstairs in the locker room, and I did this. I said, "Winnie," right? Oh man, I was just.
Oh, that's the best.
That's the best, mate. I went upstairs, and 45 minutes later, I'm almost dead at the hospital.
And you'd be looking in the camera if you could at the hospital, going,
Oh,
not winning,
not winning, losing.
Yeah.
So it was just epic in terms of the reality swing.
Oh my goodness.
Especially emotionally and mentally inside my head. So I had a triple bypass. They gave me a stent up the back with a small vessel that wasn't working too well. And 4 days later, I got out of bed with a massive zipper on my chest, a big zipper on my arm where they harvested some of the vessels to put in me, and a bruise that basically went from the outside of my knee right up to my arse because they took another artery out of my leg, or a vein out of my leg. I got out of bed. I looked in the mirror 4 days later. I couldn't recognize myself.
Is that right?
Was off. I was looking at myself going, "Holy shit." And that started this really different kind of health journey.
I can't believe you didn't notice. Like with 4 arteries being blocked, you would have thought maybe like walking up the stairs, you might have puffed a bit more, or felt like you're a bit tired, needed to sleep a bit more. That's just a classic example of unless you know what's under the hood, you're in trouble, aren't you?
Yeah, like you posted something about your mate Chucky just the other day about the 100 people that you forced to go and get their heart checked after that horrible incident in your training group, and I can just
I can just
resonate with the numbers you posted up there. I'm just like, I did the same thing. I was absolutely shocked with the state of my heart, and so it's been a real journey to sort of go back to basics, strip it all back, what is actually in your head and what is actually happening in your body. So, tightening up my testing routine every 6 months, looking at my CT calcium scans with purpose, absolutely eliminating a lot of the things that I'm obviously storing inflamed calcium with, like carbohydrates and sugar and all the cheap calories. So I've really gone back to mostly a carnivore diet, a lot of fasting, a lot of longevity things that I'm into now, the plunging and the red light, the grounding, the breath work. These sort of things are really sort of like over the last 5 years, I've found a lot of joy doing, and I know that it's safeguarding me sort of having one of those incidents again. I'm going to be high risk for stroke all of my life. I've got to stay on top of my numbers. I'm taking all my medication like a good boy, and things are going well. I've had a further incident last May where one of the vessels collapsed, so I had another stent. So I've got 2 stents now, triple bypass, seems to be working okay.
You spoke about ego, and I mean, I was very similar with coaches that I had through my swimming career and Ironman, where you've got to feel like you're the best, and the coaches instill in you that you need to feel like you're going to destroy the opposition and all those things that you do from training into a race. And so was it humbling when you woke up in bed with the zipper and the tubes in you, and you looked in the mirror and you went, "This doesn't look like Duncan Armstrong anymore"? Was that like the moment where you just went, "Hang on a minute, I need to go and have a bit of a refresh on how I think"?
Yeah, like as I said, I'm a good storyteller, mate, and the stories I tell myself are epic. So you pretty much
we're the same.
Yeah, you pretty much described the day of infamy in my head. It was all that, Leachy. It was this come to Jesus moment where I was just like, I can't escape this. I can't talk myself out of this. And my ego was sitting there just staring at the reality going.
Were you just in shock? Were you just like, I can't believe this is happening? It can't be real. This is not reality. Yeah,
man, I headed into depression. I headed into denial. I had a lack of confidence, mate. I quit work, took the kids out of school, and we went around Queensland to camper trailer during the crazy days of COVID, where school wasn't on anyway. But I needed all of that time doing something like a vacation just to build my confidence back up that I'm going to be okay. It took me a whole year, maybe 18 months to get back to work properly, where I could cope with anything. So it was a real 180 from how I was chugging along and my goal sets and working on it every day and things like that. And it was just go to almost I can't do anything. So yeah, for me, it was a real come to Jesus moment, even though I was a Christian already. But yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. They got me out of the room about day 5, and I hadn't been out of the room yet. I was pretty happy just to make it into a cave and just cope. And this guy unexpectedly came in for an X-ray and then took me down to the Allied Health X-ray downstairs in the public. So I'm in a gown. My bare bum is on this leather wheelchair seat. I acutely feel I'm naked, and I've been lined up in a bay. And people
on show to the general public that Duncan Armstrong's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting there, and I've got the bandages on and everything like that. And I just started to weep, mate, because I'm standing in a bay and I've got an 80-year-old there and a 70-year-old there and someone in a wheelchair there. And I'm thinking, man, is this my new community? Is this where it's at? Am I ever going to get out of this shit? Because it's been 5 days of absolute hell.
Crying now.
And I'm sitting there and I'm having a bit of a cry thinking, oh. And then there's a little voice in my head just kind of goes, well, mate, what's the alternative? You're not here to raise your kids. And it almost snapped me out of it, Lechy. It almost just went bang. And all of a sudden I've just gone, boof, right. Okay, new target. Let's go. If I'm going to be around, I've got to get to the bottom of this shit and not let it happen again. And mate, it was like the next day just started. And I'd get up every morning because you can't sleep in a hospital anyway. And I'd get up and I had this east-facing room and I could see the sun come up over the Gateway Bridge out of my window. And I just had to be there to see it every day going, right, here we go. We've got another 24. What are we going to do today? What am I going to talk about? How am I going to get out of it? And I just started building from that point. But, man, the smallest bit of adversity that come through, I'd just go to water. My confidence was so down.
It's amazing.
Kids and family on the road, built it back up, and I've been pretty good for about 3 years now.
See, Laurie Lawrence was a coach that could tell you that you could do anything and you could run through brick walls, and you proved that in '88 when you won the Olympic gold medal. And it's like this is Duncan Armstrong 2.0 now. This is like the rebirth of Duncan Armstrong, and you've taken on board a lot of the traits as being an athlete, where you're setting goals, small incremental improvements, but you're doing it in a different way, not with sport, but in health and life.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. But this time it's without the fantasy. The 2.0 part, as you're calling it out, it's really, I just ask myself a simple question a lot of the time going, but what do I really know? Because I make up a story and I go, oh, this is going well. I'm like, yeah, but do I really know that? What do I actually really know about this? So it comes back to your testing, comes back to your dailies. I call them the dailies. And, I know that the dailies make me better. Okay, that's what I do know. So I'm going to do them. But I'm not going to get caught up in all the frivolous stuff, the prestige, the status, the new pair of shoes, how am I looking, is everything right, what do people think? That's all taken a really, really big reduction in terms of my headspace, because I'm back to life happens right now. It doesn't happen in the future. We can plan for a little bit today, but I can only do that today. So let's stick with today. Like tomorrow's not born and yesterday's dead. Life happens in this 24.
Say that again. Say that one again.
Tomorrow's not born yet, and yesterday's dead.
Yeah, wow.
Life happens here, mate. So, we can get anticipation about the birth of tomorrow, and we can get but it hasn't happened yet. So how much time are you going to spend there? You can get excited for a little while, but mate, don't spend a lot of time thinking about tomorrow, because good, bad, or ugly, it's definitely going to happen. It's usually not how you're thinking about today. So just stick with today. What do you know today, and what's my actions around where I want to be tomorrow? But what can I do today? That's it. And so it's something that we had in sport, and you would have found this too, that, you get this injury in your shoulder and you can't do your paddling or your swimming and stuff, but I can do my running. So that's what I can do today. So let's go and do that. Yeah. So there's all these things we can do today. So let's just do that, because that's what I do know I'm doing.
Yeah, that's being in the now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
And Carlos, you're big with that, with meditation and just that whole training that you do around the mind as well.
Yeah, it sort of gets back to what we were talking about prior, which is to get the better performance from any team, they've got to be present. And as we know, there's habitual conceptualization and your mind running to that tomorrow that you're talking about, where it's nice because we're born to strategize. Humans' superpower is to cooperate to solve problems together. So our mind defaults to that. We've got to be intentional to stop it. What I think, Leachy, you should be intentional to do is listen to what Duncan's saying about the vanity and that fantasy that you run in your own head about yourself, and move forward from 1984. And just on that, Duncan
should I be Leachy 2.0 myself?
3 point something. Duncan gave you a good rap about how you've evolved with the stories, but I can tell the 1984 Coolangatta Gold story footstep for footstep, because it's all I've ever heard talking to you.
It's I think it's just encouraging for you to actually hang out with two blokes.
That's amazing. Oh, look, my days. Oh, yeah, my day's terrific. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Leachy. We are very lucky.
You can do two blokes.
No, I'm super, super lucky. Let me ask you a couple of key questions, and then the way this is going, I'm going to jump off the podcast and leave you two together. But the question I've got for you is, these dailies and these rituals that you engage in to protect yourself so that you don't have to recreate and go to a 3.0 and have an incident. Who helps you? Like where do you take knowledge and inspiration from? What helps you make decisions about your diet and your sleep and your exercise? I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, the market leaders, like we live in at a time that's everybody's accessible, Carl. When you look at Huberman and Attia and Dave Asprey and some of these guys in the longevity market, and it flows onto the Rogans and the Mel Gibsons and stuff like that. So these truly famous people are doing a lot of this stuff, good, bad, and ugly. And again, it's up to us to test it, to try it. And as an athlete, we're always doing that. Like so many fads come into every single sport. The breathwork fad, does it work, does it not? We're going to try it out. We're going to keep it if it does and punt it if it doesn't. There wasn't a season in my swimming career that some, 50 things didn't come onto the deck at swimming that we were going to give it a go. We did. And maybe one a year stuck to it, so there's trends and there's fads, but it's you can't give a mug a chance. So you've got to try them all just in case it works, right? And when you sort of view someone like a Lance Armstrong who had that huge intensity of trying everything, including drugs, that's kind of the avatar of an athlete. I'm not saying I'm putting on a pedestal, but because there's just been so much about his drive, determination, intensity, Lance is a good example of what athletes is going on inside our minds, So we're always going to go after that. And I've got a little bit of that. So I find most of my stuff that I try from the big platform guys. And you look in the market up here in the Sunshine Coast, and now there's a plunging centre down the road, and now there's a TH7 up at Noosa, which is a one-stop shop for everything you could possibly need in terms of recovering from anything, for whether it be sport or an operation or anything, right? So this is the world we live in, the accessibility to these sort of methods. And I was doing hyperbaric works, 2 decades ago, and it did me a great world of service in terms of the oxygen uptake. So I've had an interest in this sort of stuff, be all you can be, that kind of thing, So I've got that ticking away at the back of my mind, whether it's loud or soft sometimes. But that's where I find it from. And I've just got a routine that I can get to every day. And the diet is a big thing. Like I've discovered many good things on carnivore diet. And as a boy from Rocky, beef the capital of the world, I'm happy about that because I've been eating steaks all my life, and now I've got permission to eat as many as I want. So it's that kind of thing. And I'm on a journey. There's no destination to this stuff. We're on a life arc. I've got stuck in very, very heavy duty 4-year goals for the Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games and things like that. And what I've learned and softened my view on is, no, everything that's happening today is just on a continuous arc that is not going to stop. And what I can do today is where that arc's going to be, good, bad, or ugly. And if I get my dailies done, I enjoy the arc a lot more. So this is not a destination. And that's where the stressing about the future comes from athletes. I'm not an athlete anymore. I'm trying to get the most out of my life, be with my kids and my wife Rebecca. And so the arc really suits me in terms of my mindset now, rather than sort of at 57 I'm going to be here, at 60 I'm going to be here. I've still got that in me. Don't worry, I still tool it at times and terrorising it. But I've constantly got to step back into today.
No. Carl and I are very similar with you got your non-negotiables, right, around health and wellness. Yeah. And, like as an example for me, I won't eat solid food until 10, 11, 12 o'clock each day and gap that sort of nighttime break. Non-negotiable is that I exercise every morning, do something. I usually don't do two things in a row, so I can break up the use of the muscles. And non-negotiable is that I walk 10,000 to 20,000 steps a day because I walk the dogs twice a day. So there are those ones in there as well. And then things like sauna and ice baths and things for me aren't non-negotiables, but if you can fit them in, then that's a thing too. Like another non-negotiable is 7 to 8 hours sleep a night because the data shows that that's super important, right? So, yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I think we're on the same page, and that's just the daily non-negotiables. I mean, obviously, if you're traveling, things might change slightly, but you sort of know your own rules that you want to stick to, and it just makes it a bit easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of take it as a bit of a competition with myself. You do your travel dates and you just fall into your patterns. You can't eat anything when you're traveling. You just got to drink a lot.
Which is good, right? So you get a day of intermittent fasting sort of thing.
Yeah, you just cannot eat anything in your path of travel. There's just nothing there good for you. You know what I mean? So you either take hot dogs with a bit of salmon or you don't touch anything. So again, you're right, mate. You can tool this and it's a lot of fun to have. But I'm pretty much on the exact same program as you, Leachy.
We'd ring each other most days, Leachy, just sort of check in. And
we'll send each other links on health things that pop up and little bits of data and a study that's come through. And like we're both into the pumpkin seed oil at the moment because you pass it on that helps with prostate. And it's Carl noticed a 15 to 20% improvement there. So, mate, we've jumped on that program. So, you have to have a sort of a gang that's into the same stuff. Maybe we'll get you on the list, Duncan. Mate,
I'd like that. Yeah,
causing you grief,
Yeah, and that's where it's at, mate. It for us at our age, it is about community. We're not lone rangers anymore, and we don't want to be. There couldn't be anything worse than sort of going through this by yourself.
Well done, Dunk, mate. And I appreciate your honesty and just your vulnerability in just that whole journey in hospital. I mean, that's truly heavy, and for someone that's been one of the fittest people in the world during your athletic career, and then continuing on, and and obviously keeping your name up there in the media, and like you did, that would have been so confronting because you wouldn't have remembered hitting the deck, I'm assuming, at the hospital, and to wake up and just sheer shock in what's going on, and that's mate, to share that's unbelievable.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I appreciate it. And if you can help anybody along their journey, like you're doing with the deep fibs and all that kind of stuff, that's where we're at, mate. If we can influence it all, it's to save lives, mate.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Great having you on.
Yeah, thanks, boys. It was nice lounging with you.
Good on you, Duncan.